Welcome to the Vocabulary Hub, your space to really get to grips with the English language. For those of you learning English at a B2 level, you've already come so far.
Definitely.
But really understanding vocabulary and how to use it just right, that's what can truly elevate your English. So we're going to take a good look at some important ideas that can help you do exactly that.
That's right. Think of this as a relaxed conversation about some of those slightly tricky parts of English words. We'll explore how words can be similar, how they differ in subtle ways, and, how you can use them most effectively to say exactly what you mean.
Okay, so let's start with something called nuances. Now, this word itself might be new to some of you, but the idea is about those very small yet important differences between things that seem quite alike.
Yeah.
Imagine you're looking at shades of a color, say a light green and a dark green. They're both green, of course, but there's a definite subtle difference. That's what a nuance is.
Exactly. And this applies to words all the time. You might find two words that seem to mean the same thing, but there's often a slight difference in their meaning or in how we actually use them in a sentence. Mastering these nuances is what makes your English sound really natural and precise.
And this can be a real challenge for English learners, can't it? For instance, think about the words like and love.
Oh, yeah.
Both show a positive feeling, but you definitely wouldn't use them in all the same situations, would you?
No, absolutely not. While both express affection, the strength of that feeling and the situations where you'd use them are very different. That's a perfect example of how understanding a nuance can change the whole meaning you're trying to convey.
Right.
Imagine saying you like your best friend versus saying you love your best friend. It carries a very different weight, doesn't it?
It certainly does. All right, next up, synonyms. This is probably a more familiar term. Synonyms are words that have a very close or, the same meaning. A simple example is the words happy and joyful.
Yes, happy and joyful are good synonyms. But what's interesting to consider is that even between synonyms, there can be those subtle nuances we just talked about.
Oh, okay.
They might have slightly different feelings connected to them, or we might use them in slightly different kinds of situations.
Right. So while you could say that big and large are synonyms,
Mm-hmm.
you might instinctively choose one over the other, depending on the specific sentence you're building, even if the basic meaning is the same.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this leads us to the idea of using words interchangeably. This means being able to swap one word for another without really changing the fundamental meaning of the sentence.
And this is where things get a little more complex. Even though synonyms have similar meanings, you can't always use them interchangeably. The context, surrounding words, and the overall situation often tells you which word is the most natural and appropriate choice.
That makes perfect sense. So while it's true that in many cases you can use see and look interchangeably, there might be times when one just sounds much more natural to a native speaker than the other.
Exactly. Think about when you want someone to pay attention to something, you'd naturally say, look at this.
Right.
While you could technically say, see at this, it sounds a little strange, doesn't it?
It does, yeah.
That's because even though see and look can be synonyms in some situations, look is the more common and natural verb to use when you're directing someone's attention.
Okay, let's move on to a feeling. Being content. This is an adjective that describes feeling happy and satisfied with things as they are right now, without any worries or strong desires for more. It's that nice, peaceful feeling of acceptance.
That's a really good way to explain it. Content really highlights that sense of being at ease and accepting your current situation. It's not extreme happiness, but, a calm satisfaction.
For example, you might say, after a long day of work, I felt content just relaxing at home. It's not like you were ecstatic or jumping for joy, but you felt a pleasant sense of peace and satisfaction.
Exactly. And that brings us to the word precise. This adjective means being very accurate and clear without any vagueness or uncertainty. It's about saying exactly what you mean with no room for misunderstanding.
And being precise is so important when you're learning a new language. You want to make sure that people understand you correctly.
Yeah.
And using precise language helps avoid confusion.
Absolutely.
Like if I said to someone, please be precise when you give me the directions, that means I need clear, exact instructions, not just a general idea of how to get there.
Absolutely. When language isn't precise, it can easily lead to misunderstandings, which can be frustrating for everyone involved. So, aiming for precision in your English is a really valuable skill.
Now let's talk about a much stronger feeling, ecstatic. This adjective describes being extremely happy and excited, much, much more than just feeling happy or even joyful. It's that feeling of overwhelming excitement.
Ecstatic is that feeling of pure, intense joy and exhilaration. Think about getting some truly fantastic news, something you've really been hoping for. That feeling is likely to be ecstatic.
Right, like she was ecstatic when she heard she got accepted to her dream university. That level of happiness is way beyond just being pleased. It's a feeling of absolute elation and thrill.
Exactly. So we've looked at some individual words and those subtle differences between them. Now let's think about language in a slightly different way. Let's talk about figurative language.
Ah, yes, figurative language. This is when we use words in a way that's not literal, not exactly as they mean. It's about using comparisons and imaginative language to express ideas. And it can really make your English more vivid and interesting.
What's fascinating about figurative language is that it allows us to create strong mental images in the listener's mind and to express complex ideas in a more engaging and memorable way. It adds a layer of creativity to communication.
And a key part of figurative language is metaphors. Now, metaphors directly say that something is something else, even if it's not literally true. A really common one in English is time is money. You hear that a lot.
Yes, time is money. Obviously, time isn't made of coins or banknotes, but this metaphor helps us understand that time is a valuable resource, just like money. You can use it wisely, or you can waste it.
Right. It's a way to understand one idea by comparing it directly to something else. For instance, we might say, he has a heart of gold. That's a metaphor. And
Yeah.
it means he is a very kind and generous person.
Exactly. His heart isn't actually made of the metal gold, but it conveys the idea that his kindness is precious and valuable.
Yeah.
Then we have similes. These are similar to metaphors because they also make comparisons, but they use the words as or like to make the comparison more direct.
That's the key difference. You'll always see as or like in a simile. Think of the phrase as busy as a bee.
Uh-huh.
We all know the bees are constantly moving and working, so this simile helps us understand that someone is very, very busy.
Precisely. Or consider, she sings like an angel. Her voice isn't literally angelic, of course, but the simile creates a strong image of beautiful, pure, and perhaps even heavenly singing.
Now, this leads us to the adverb literally. This word means exactly what the words say, without any kind of figurative or imaginative meaning. And it's important to understand this because sometimes people use phrases that are not meant to be taken literally at all.
This is a really crucial point for English learners. How do you know when someone means exactly what they say and when they're using figurative language? It can be tricky.
Take the common example. If someone says, I'm so hungry I could eat a horse, they don't literally mean they want to find and eat an entire horse.
Right.
It's just a way to emphasize that they are extremely hungry.
That's right. Understanding the difference between the literal meaning of words and their figurative meaning is absolutely key to understanding both spoken and written English correctly. Sometimes taking things too literally can lead to confusion or misunderstanding of the speaker's intention.
And going back to our time is money metaphor, the word valuable comes to mind. It's an adjective that means something is very important or has a high worth.
Yes, valuable really connects to why the metaphor time is money. It makes sense. We consider both time and money to be precious and worth protecting and using wisely.
Exactly. You might say, education is a valuable tool for your future. That means education has great worth and importance for what you will achieve later in life.
Hmm.
And thinking about value leads us to the noun resource. This is something that you can use to help you achieve a goal, like money, time, knowledge, or even people.
And when we use the metaphor time as money, it really makes us think of our time as a resource that we need to manage carefully. It becomes something finite that we can use to our advantage to achieve our goals.
Right. The library is a great resource for students. It's a place filled with information and materials that students can use to help them learn. Now, let's move to a different kind of descriptive word, chaotic. This adjective describes something that is very disorganized and without any clear order.
Chaotic really paints a picture of complete confusion and a lack of any structure. Think about a room after a big storm has passed through it, or perhaps a very crowded and disorganized marketplace where everyone is moving in different directions.
Exactly. And remember our earlier metaphor, the city is a jungle.
Yes.
That can give you an image of a place that might feel chaotic, perhaps also very competitive, or even a bit dangerous and difficult to navigate.
Right.
You might say, the room was chaotic after the children played there. That tells you there were toys everywhere, nothing was put away, and there was no sense of order.
And that idea of a jungle also brings in the adjective competitive. This describes a situation where many people are trying to get the same thing, and they need to work very hard to succeed.
Right. If a city is thought of as a jungle, it suggests that it's a tough environment where people are constantly competing for things like jobs, housing, opportunities.
Yeah.
You might hear someone say, the job market is very competitive right now, meaning that a lot of people are applying for the same positions.
And to survive and succeed in that jungle, you need to be able to navigate. This verb means to find your way in a complex or challenging environment or to deal with a difficult situation successfully.
So if the city feels like a jungle, you have to learn how to navigate its complexities. Things like the traffic, the different neighborhoods, the social interactions. You could say it can be challenging to navigate the public transportation system in a new city, meaning it takes effort and skill to figure out how to use it effectively.
Now let's look at some more descriptive phrases. Buzzing around is a phrase that means moving quickly and busily, often with a feeling of excitement or a lot of activity.
And this really connects to our simile, as busy as a bee.
Yeah.
We often think of bees as always being active and moving quickly, buzzing around from flower to flower. Similarly, you might say the students were buzzing around with excitement before the field trip, meaning they were moving quickly and talking excitedly because they were looking forward to it.
And on the opposite side of the spectrum, we have the adjective shy. This describes someone who feels nervous or uncomfortable in social situations and doesn't like to attract attention to themselves.
And we had the simile as quiet as a mouse, which can describe someone who is very shy or doesn't make much noise. You might say, he is usually shy when meeting new people, meaning he might not talk much or make a lot of eye contact because he feels a bit nervous.
Now, as you continue your journey learning English vocabulary, you will have encountered many new words and phrases. The verb encounter means to meet or come across something unexpectedly.
Right. Figurative language can be a bit tricky if you haven't encountered it before. And if you're using a new piece of software, someone might ask you, have you encountered any problems with the new software? Meaning, have you come across any issues while using it?
And when you do encounter those tricky parts of English, it might sometimes feel a little counterintuitive. This adjective describes something that seems to go against what you would normally expect or what seems like common sense.
Our time is money. Metaphor can sound quite counterintuitive if you think about it in a very literal way. How can something abstract like time be directly compared to physical money that you can hold and spend? It doesn't seem logical at first.
Exactly. Or you might hear someone say, it might seem counterintuitive, but sometimes spending more money initially on a high-quality item can actually save you money in the long run because it lasts longer. That goes against our initial instinct to always choose the cheapest option.
Now, to face these challenges in language learning and in life in general, sometimes you need courage. This noun is the strength and determination to deal with fear, difficulty, or pain.
And we have the idiom bite the bullet, which means to face a difficult or unpleasant situation with courage and without complaining. It's about showing that inner strength and getting through something tough.
Right. It takes courage to speak up for what you believe in, especially if your opinion is different from others or might be unpopular.
Definitely.
Now, what about those tasks that we know we need to do, but we really don't want to? We often end up putting off doing them. This phrasal verb means to intentionally delay doing something.
Yes. If you have a difficult task you've been putting off, you know that feeling of procrastination where you keep finding reasons to do it later.
Absolutely. I keep putting off cleaning my room. It's something I know I should do, but I find other things to do instead of tackling it.
We've all been there.
And hopefully, by exploring all these vocabulary concepts, you'll be able to better grasp the English language. This verb means to fully understand or comprehend something.
And understanding things like figurative language and nuances will really help you grasp the meaning behind spoken English much better. You'll start to catch those subtle implied meanings that might have confused you before.
Right. You might say, it took me a while to grasp the main concept of the theory, but once you understood it, everything else became clearer. Now let's talk about some ways you can build your vocabulary. Two helpful concepts here are prefixes and suffixes.
Prefixes are word parts that we add to the beginning of a word to change its meaning. For example, the prefix pre often means before, as in preview or pre-order.
Exactly. And the prefix often means again, like in the words replay, to play again, or rewrite, to write again.
And suffixes are word parts that we add to the end of a word to change its meaning, or sometimes its grammatical function, like changing a verb into a noun or an adjective into an adverb.
For example, the suffix "lily" often changes an adjective into an adverb, like when we change the adjective quick into the adverb quickly.
Right.
Knowing about prefixes and suffixes can be a really efficient way to expand your vocabulary. This adjective means being able to do something successfully and without wasting time or effort.
It's actually a very efficient strategy because once you learn the meaning of a common prefix or suffix, you can often figure out the meaning of many new words that use that same word part.
Oh, that's smart.
You're essentially learning multiple pieces of vocabulary at once. Using online tools can be a very efficient way to study because they can help you learn these patterns quickly.
And as you encounter new words in your reading or listening, understanding prefixes and suffixes can really help you make a good guess at their meaning.
Yes, so if you encounter a word you don't know, maybe don't immediately reach for the dictionary. See if you can break it down first. Sometimes just identifying a prefix or a suffix can give you a valuable clue about what the word might mean.
Good tip. Now let's talk about how words often go together in English. There are many natural pairings of words, also known as collocations. These are words that native speakers often use together because they just sound right.
What's interesting about these pairings or collocations is that English has a lot of them, and knowing these common combinations can make your own English sound much more natural and fluent. It's like there are certain words that are just good friends and like to hang out together.
Like salt and pepper.
Exactly. Salt and pepper are common pairings in cooking, but it happens with verbs and nouns, adjectives and nouns, all sorts of combinations.
Okay, so it's not always grammatically wrong to use other words, but it might just sound a bit off. Grammatically means according to the rules of grammar.
Precisely. You can put words together grammatically correctly, but they might still sound off, which just means wrong, strange, or unnatural, not normal.
Right. So think about when you're talking about the weather. We typically say heavy rain, don't we? Typically means usually, or in most cases.
Yeah.
Not usually strong rain or powerful rain, even though those words might seem to have a similar meaning grammatically.
Yes, heavy rain has become the standard way to describe a lot of rain. Standard here means widely accepted and commonly used. It just sounds right to native ears.
So learning these common collocations will really help your English sound more natural and fluent. Fluent means being able to use a language easily and smoothly.
Exactly. Someone who speaks French fluently, like she speaks French fluently after living in France for many years, can express their thoughts and ideas easily. It's almost like they know some of the unwritten rules of the language, things that aren't formally taught but are just understood by native speakers.
Right. Like in many cultures, there are unwritten rules about greetings or personal space. You just learn these by being around and observing.
Hmm.
Understanding collocations is a really important aspect of communication. An aspect is just a part or feature of something.
Grammar is one aspect of learning a new language, and knowing common collocations is another important aspect that contributes to sounding natural. Now, the way we use language often changes depending on the context, who we're talking to, where we are, and what the situation is.
You really need to consider the context, not only to understand the meaning of a word, because some words can have different meanings in different situations, but also to know which words and tone are appropriate to use.
Exactly. So, words like inquire, assist, furthermore, and moreover are generally used in more serious or formal situations. Generally means usually, but not always.
Think about situations like business meetings, academic writing, like when you're writing a research paper for a university, and official letters. These are all contexts where people tend to use more formal language.
Right.
Academic writing often requires a very formal tone and precise language.
And official letters often follow a specific format and use a more formal vocabulary to show respect and professionalism. So, in these situations, instead of saying help, you might choose to say assist.
Yeah, assist definitely sounds more formal than help. You might hear someone say, "Could you please assist me with this heavy box?" in a more formal setting.
And instead of using the word also, maybe when you're writing a formal essay, you might choose to use furthermore or moreover to sound a bit more sophisticated and to smoothly add more information.
Could you give an example?
Sure, like the restaurant has great food. Furthermore, the service is excellent. Or the hotel was in a perfect location. Moreover, it was very affordable. See how it adds a formal linking idea?
Okay, I see. And in a more formal email, instead of just asking a question, you might choose to inquire. Inquire is a more formal way to say ask.
Right, so you might write, I would like to inquire about the availability of rooms, which sounds more formal than just asking if there are any rooms available.
But in a casual chat with a friend, you would almost always just say ask. Casual means relaxed and informal. We had a casual conversation about our weekend plans.
Exactly. Similarly, if you want to find out some information in a formal context and want to sound very precise, you might use the verb ascertain.
Ascertain.
Yeah, ascertain. The police are trying to ascertain the facts of the case. It's just a more formal way to say find out or make sure of.
Okay, got it. So it really comes down to choosing the right tone for your audience and the specific situation you're in. Tone refers to the attitude or feeling that is expressed through your speaking or writing.
You might notice the tone of his email was very formal, based on the words and sentence structure he used.
And conversely, if you're in a job interview, using very casual slang probably wouldn't create a very good impression. Conversely means, on the other hand, in contrast.
Definitely not. For example, she loves being the center of attention. Conversely, her brother is quite shy. It shows the opposite.
And slang refers to very informal words or expressions that are often used by specific groups of people and might not be understood by everyone.
Right. It's generally a good idea to be careful when using slang because not everyone will understand it. And it might not create the professional impression that you want to make. That's the feeling or opinion that someone gets about you.
You want to make a good impression on a new boss, for example.
Exactly. Understanding the right tone and the appropriate vocabulary for the context is a really important part of communicating effectively, meaning that you produce the result you intended. To communicate effectively, you really need to listen carefully as well as speak clearly.
And you don't need to feel like you have to stop and check a dictionary every single time you come across a new word. You don't need to do that immediately. Immediately means right away, without any delay. Please come here immediately is a direct instruction.
Instead, a really useful skill is to try using context clues. These are the surrounding words and sentences that can give you hints about the meaning of a word you don't know.
Right. Often, the words and sentences around a new word can give you really good hints about what it might mean. Hints are just small clues or suggestions.
Yes, this is such a practical skill to develop. Practical means useful or effective in real-life situations. Learning to cook is a very practical skill, for instance, and you can often guess the meaning of a new word by using the context clues around it.
Like, the teacher gave us some hints about what would be on the test, meaning she gave us some clues to help us prepare.
Exactly.
So, for example, if you read the sentence, despite the torrential downpour, they decided to continue their hike, even if you've never heard the phrase torrential downpour before.
Mm-hmm.
The word despite suggests something negative, and the word hike suggests an outdoor activity, probably happening in the rain. So you can guess it's something about very bad rain.
And you'd be right. Torrential downpour means very heavy and continuous rain. The baseball game was canceled due to the torrential downpour. And the word torrential really just intensifies the word downpour. Intensifies means it makes it stronger or more extreme.
Okay. Like adding more spice intensifies the flavor of the dish.
Precisely. Now imagine you see the description, a dilapidated building. Even if you don't know the word dilapidated, the word building gives you a starting point. Dilapidated means being in very bad condition because of age or not being taken care of.
Right. The old house was dilapidated with broken windows and peeling paint. That description really gives you a clear picture of something that's very run down. The abandoned factory looked dilapidated.
Yeah, and a similar phrase you might hear is just run down, meaning in poor condition because it hasn't been maintained. The neighborhood looked a bit run down, similar idea.
So when you encounter new vocabulary, try your best not to panic. Panic is that sudden feeling of strong fear or anxiety that can make it hard to think clearly.
Yeah, try not to panic if you make a mistake when you're speaking English. It's a normal part of learning. Don't let it stop you.
Instead, really try to internalize these vocabulary concepts. Internalize means to make something become a natural part of your understanding and how you think about things.
Yeah, so it becomes almost automatic. It takes time to truly internalize new grammar rules so that you don't have to consciously think about them.
And remember that learning a language is an ongoing journey, a continuous process of learning and discovery. Ongoing means it's continuing and not finished.
Like learning a new language is an ongoing process.
And continuous means it goes on without stopping or interruption.
There has been a continuous improvement in her English skills as she practices regularly. It just keeps going.
So for all of you B2 English learners out there, really understanding these different vocabulary concepts, the subtle differences between words, the power of figurative language, knowing when to use formal or casual language, and always considering the context. These are all incredibly valuable for taking your English comprehension and communication to the next level.
Absolutely. Make a conscious effort to pay attention to these aspects as you read and listen to English. Notice how native speakers choose their words and think about the effect those choices have. It makes a huge difference.
And remember, this journey of language learning is continuous. There's always more to discover and understand. Keep exploring, keep noticing, and keep learning. That's all for this deep dive into the Vocabulary Hub. We hope it's been helpful for you.